Move to Boston with me to support my family, or we are done. So I discovered she had already accepted a design director position there, and was using her parents' crisis to manipulate me into following her pre-planned career move. I am Jake 32M, senior software engineer at a fintech startup here in Austin. Been with Riley 28F for 3 years. She works as a freelance graphic designer, mostly local small business clients, makes decent money, but always talks about wanting to land bigger corporate contracts. 2 weeks ago, my world got turned upside down when Riley sat me down in our living room with this serious expression I had never seen before. Jake, I have made a decision. We need to move to Boston to support my family. I stared at her, confused. Boston, what are you talking about? My dad lost his job last month. Mom's been crying every night. They are facing foreclosure on the house I grew up in. They need family support, not just phone calls and video chats. This was the first I had heard about any of this. Riley, why didn't you tell me your dad lost his job? When did this happen? I didn't want to stress you out with my family's problems, but it is gotten worse. They got another foreclosure notice yesterday. Mom called me sobbing. Okay, but Boston is like 2,000 miles away. I cannot just leave my job. What about everything we have built here? That is when her expression hardened in a way that made my stomach drop. Jake, if you really loved me, you would want to be there for my family during the worst crisis they have ever faced. The fact that you are immediately thinking about your job instead of their pain tells me exactly where I rank in your priorities. I felt like I had been slapped. That is not fair, Riley. Of course, I care about your parents, but moving across the country is a huge decision. Cannot we help them financially from here? Send money for the mortgage payments. They don't want charity, Jake. They want family support. They want to know someone cares enough to actually be there, not just write checks from far away. The conversation went in circles for hours. Riley painted this picture of her parents desperately needing our physical presence, emotional support that could only happen if we were living nearby. Every practical question I raised, about my career, our lease, our life in Austin, got turned into evidence that I didn't truly love her or care about family. You know what, Jake? I thought I knew who you were, but this conversation is showing me something different. Any man who really loved his partner would want to be there during a family emergency like this. That night, I barely slept, questioning everything. Was I really being selfish? Were my concerns about leaving Austin just excuses to avoid supporting her family? The next morning, Riley had already started looking at apartments in Boston online. I found some nice places in Cambridge, close to my parents. We could probably afford something decent if we both found jobs quickly. Riley, I cannot just quit my job and hope something works out. I am up for senior engineer next month. Stock options vest in 6 months. This is my career we are talking about, and my family's home is what I am talking about. Jake, they are about to lose everything, and you are worried about stock options. Over the next week, the pressure intensified. Riley's mom started calling me directly. Jake, honey, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Riley said, you might move here to help us through this difficult time. Having young people around would mean everything to us right now. Her dad called 2 days later. Son, I have never been one to ask for help, but having family nearby during this crisis would be such a comfort to your mother. She has been so depressed since I lost my position. These weren't just casual conversations. They felt calculated, designed to make me feel guilty for not immediately packing up my life to move to Boston. When I mentioned to Riley that the direct calls felt like pressure, she exploded. Pressure. My parents are facing the worst financial crisis of their lives, and you think reaching out for emotional support is pressure. You are showing me exactly who you are, Jake. I am not saying I will not help them, Riley. I am saying moving across the country feels extreme. What if I sent money for a few mortgage payments, while your dad looks for work? They are not looking for handouts. Jake, they want family support. They want to know we care enough to actually be there. But something was nagging at me. Riley kept insisting her parents needed emotional support, not financial help. Yet every conversation somehow circled back to their financial crisis. The foreclosure, the mortgage payments, the stress of losing their house. My friend Connor noticed my mood at work. Dude, you look like hell. What is going on? I explained the situation. Connor listened, then asked the question that had been bothering me. Wait, if they are facing foreclosure, why wouldn't they want financial help? That is literally the only thing that stops foreclosure, paying the mortgage. Bro, emotional support doesn't keep the bank from taking your house. This doesn't add up. That evening, I tried a different approach with Riley. I have been thinking about your parents' situation. What if we took out a loan and covered their mortgage payments for 6 months? That would give your dad time to find work without the foreclosure pressure. Riley's reaction was immediate and angry. You still don't get it, Jake. This isn't about money. It is about being there for family when they need you most. The fact that you keep trying to throw money at this, instead of actually showing up, proves you don't understand what real love looks like. But Riley, if they are facing foreclosure, money is exactly what they need. Emotional support doesn't pay mortgages. You are being deliberately obtuse, Jake. They need to know we care enough to be there. Not just send checks from Texas. The conversation ended with Riley giving me an ultimatum that made everything crystal clear. You have 1 week to decide. Jake, either you are willing to move to Boston to support my family, or you are not the man I thought you were. Choose. I have been staring at apartment listings for Boston, trying to figure out if I am being unreasonable or if something about this whole situation feels wrong. My friends think Riley's being manipulative, but what if they are wrong? What if real love does require this kind of sacrifice? The deadline is in 3 days, and I honestly don't know what to do. Update 1: the week after Riley's ultimatum was psychological warfare. She moved into our spare bedroom and launched what I can only describe as a campaign to make me feel guilty for not immediately agreeing to uproot my life. Every morning brought carefully targeted comments designed to highlight my supposed selfishness. I cannot believe I have to beg the man I love to support my family during their darkest hour. Any other boyfriend would have been planning the move the day I told him about Dad's situation. I guess I know where family ranks in your priorities now. Each statement felt like a small knife, precise and purposeful. I found myself walking on eggshells in my own apartment, afraid to mention work or anything that might trigger another lecture about my character flaws. Meanwhile, her parents ramped up their involvement. Her mom's calls became daily, each one more emotionally charged than the last. Jake, honey, I got another letter from the bank today. We have until the end of next month before they start proceedings. Having family close during this nightmare would mean everything. Her dad started sending job listings from Boston tech companies, with notes like, "Thought you might find this interesting. Son, lots of opportunities here for someone with your skills." These weren't subtle hints. They were coordinated pressure designed to make me feel responsible for their emotional well-being if I didn't move. The breaking point came Thursday night. Riley's mom called while we were having dinner, sobbing, "Jake, I am so sorry to bother you, but I had to tell someone. The stress is making me sick. I haven't been sleeping, can barely eat. If we lose this house, I don't know what we will do." After I hung up, Riley looked at me with this expression of pure disappointment. "Did you hear that, Jake? My mother is having a breakdown, and you are still worried about your precious career. What kind of man puts job advancement over family crisis? Riley, I feel terrible for your parents, but emotional support doesn't solve foreclosure. If they are really facing losing their house, they need money, not us living nearby. You keep saying that, but you don't understand. But how does us being unemployed in Boston help them cope with foreclosure?" That is when she said something that stopped me cold. "Who said we would be unemployed? I have already been networking with design agencies there. There are opportunities in Boston we don't have here." "What do you mean? Networking? When did you start looking for work in Boston?" She backtracked quickly. "I just mean I have been researching the market. Obviously, I had need to find work if we moved." But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she had been prepared for that question. Friday, I decided to test something. I called a friend who works in mortgage lending and asked about foreclosure timelines. If someone gets a foreclosure notice, how long do they actually have? Depends on the state, but usually 90–120 days from first notice to actual foreclosure. And if they can catch up on payments, even partial payments, they can usually work out a payment plan. So if someone was facing foreclosure, sending money would actually help. Absolutely. Banks want to avoid foreclosure if possible. They had much rather work out payment arrangements. That evening, I approached Riley with what seemed like an obvious solution. I talked to a mortgage expert today. If your parents are really facing foreclosure, I could send them money for a few payments while your dad finds work. That would give them breathing room and stop the foreclosure process. Riley's reaction was immediate anger. Jake, for the last time, they don't want handouts. They need family support. The fact that you keep pushing money instead of actually being there shows you fundamentally don't understand what they are going through. But Riley, money is literally what stops foreclosure. Emotional support doesn't make mortgage payments. You are being deliberately dense. Jake, this is about more than money. This is about showing up for family when they need you most. The conversation went nowhere, but I noticed something strange. Throughout the week, while Riley kept insisting her parents didn't want financial help, she would also drop several comments about Boston's job market, the cost of living there, and how much easier it would be to support her parents if we lived closer. Saturday, my friend Connor came over to help me move furniture, and he immediately picked up on the tension. Dude, you look like you are being held hostage in your own place. I explained the escalating pressure campaign. Connor listened, then asked the question I had been avoiding. Jake, has Riley ever actually asked her parents if they would accept financial help, or is she just assuming they wouldn't want it? I realized I had been taking Riley's word that her parents refused money, but what if they would never actually been offered direct financial assistance? Sunday night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Riley's parents directly. What I learned in that conversation revealed the truth about what was really happening, and it wasn't what Riley had been telling me at all. Update 2, just got back from the most surreal weekend of my life. Had to drive to Houston to help my brother move. Gave me time to think about everything that has been happening. So Sunday night, I called Riley's parents. I figured if they were really facing this crisis, they deserved to know someone was willing to help financially, regardless of what Riley said about them not wanting charity. The conversation with her dad was illuminating. Mr. Harrison, this is Jake. Riley's told me about your job situation and the foreclosure issue. I wanted you to know that I would be happy to help with mortgage payments while you are looking for work. There was a long pause. Then, that is very generous, Jake. But I am not sure what you mean about foreclosure. My stomach dropped. Riley said you got foreclosure notices, that you might lose the house. Well, we did get behind on payments when I lost my job, but we worked out a payment plan with the bank last week. My severance package covered most of what we owed, and I start a new position Monday. I felt the world tilt. You start a new job Monday? Yeah, been interviewing for weeks. Better position than my last one. Actually, I am sorry if Riley gave you the impression we were in some kind of crisis. We had a rough patch, but things are looking up. After I hung up, I sat in my truck outside our apartment for an hour, trying to process what I had just learned. Riley had been telling me her parents were facing foreclosure and needed our emotional support, while her dad had already solved their financial problems and was starting a new job. When I confronted Riley, her reaction told me everything I needed to know. You called my parents? Jake, how could you do that behind my back? Riley, your dad said he worked out a payment plan with the bank and starts a new job Monday. There is no foreclosure. There is no crisis. She got defensive immediately. There was a crisis. Just because dad found work doesn't mean they don't need family support. But you have been telling me they are about to lose their house. You said they got another foreclosure notice yesterday. The situation was serious. Jake, just because it is improving doesn't mean they don't want us closer. That is when I realized what was really happening. This had never been about her parents' financial crisis. This had been about getting me to move to Boston, and the family emergency was just convenient cover. Riley, level with me. How long have you been wanting to move to Boston? She couldn't meet my eyes. I have always missed home, Jake. You know that. That is not what I asked. How long have you been planning this move? The truth came out in pieces. Riley had been unhappy in Austin for over a year, felt like her freelance career had hit a ceiling, wanted to be closer to family. When her dad temporarily lost his job, she saw an opportunity to frame moving as a family emergency rather than her personal preference. I thought if I explained it as helping my family, you would understand how important it was to me. So you lied about the foreclosure, about them needing emotional support. I didn't lie, Jake. They were stressed about money for a few weeks. I just thought it would help you see why moving made sense. The manipulation was breathtaking. For 2 weeks, Riley had been making me question my own character, calling me selfish for not wanting to abandon my career to support her parents, when there had never actually been a crisis requiring our presence. But then she said something that made me realize this deception went even deeper. Besides, it is not like I was asking you to sacrifice everything. Boston has great tech opportunities. You could probably find something even better than your current job. Riley, when exactly did you start researching Boston tech jobs? Her face went pale. I just meant, generally, there are opportunities. No, you said you had been networking with design agencies. When did that start? That is when the final piece clicked. I grabbed my laptop and started checking. What I found in Riley's browser history, going back months, revealed the true scope of her planning. And the family crisis had been just one part of a much larger deception. She hadn't been spontaneously responding to her parents' emergency. She had been orchestrating a move to Boston for months, and her father's temporary job loss had simply provided the perfect emotional leverage to make it happen. Tomorrow, I am confronting Riley with everything I have discovered. But first, I need to understand exactly how long I have been living in a carefully constructed reality designed to serve her agenda. Final update: the confrontation with Riley revealed the full scope of her deception. When I showed her the browser history going back 6 months, searches for Boston apartments, design agencies, cost of living comparisons, she finally admitted the truth. Riley had been planning to move to Boston since last spring. She had been unhappy with her freelance income in Austin, felt disconnected from her family, and wanted a fresh start. The networking with design agencies wasn't recent. She had been building connections for months. Jake, I was trying to find the right way to bring it up. I knew you loved your job here, so I was waiting for the right opportunity. The right opportunity being your dad's job loss. When Dad got laid off, it seemed like the perfect time to suggest the move. I thought if you understood how much my family needed support, you would be more open to relocating. The psychological manipulation had been systematic. Riley had taken a real but temporary financial stress and amplified it into a manufactured crisis requiring our immediate relocation. She had coached her parents on what to say during their calls to me, though they didn't realize the extent of her orchestration. My parents did ask if we might move closer during that difficult time. I just helped them understand how much it would mean to have family nearby. What bothered me most wasn't even the lying about the foreclosure or the coordinated pressure campaign. It was the months of making me question my own character and priorities, while she systematically manipulated the situation to get what she wanted. Riley had been describing my attachment to Austin as selfishness, my career concerns as misplaced priorities, my reluctance to abandon everything as proof I didn't truly love her. Meanwhile, she had been planning her exit strategy and just needed to convince me to follow. When I ended the relationship, Riley tried several approaches to change my mind. First, it was promises that she could be happy in Austin if I really wanted to stay. Then it was suggestions that we try long distance, while she helped her family through their adjustment. Finally, it was accusations that I was throwing away 3 years over a misunderstanding about her intentions. Jake, couples relocate for each other all the time. I don't understand why you are making this so complicated. Because you spent 2 weeks making me feel like a terrible person for not wanting to abandon my career to help your parents. When there was no emergency and you had already decided to move, regardless of my feelings. Riley moved to Boston 3 weeks later. According to her social media, she is working at a design agency there and seems happy. I hope she finds what she was looking for. I am still in Austin, still at the same company, got the promotion I was working toward. The stock options I was worried about losing are worth significantly more now. My apartment feels peaceful without the constant undercurrent of manipulation and guilt. Started seeing someone new last month. Emma works in product management at a different tech company. What is striking is how straightforward our communication is. When she has preferences about where we spend weekends or what restaurants we try, no elaborate emotional campaigns or manufactured crises to get her way. The experience taught me something important about recognizing manipulation, especially the kind that comes disguised as love and concern. Real emergencies don't require elaborate emotional pressure campaigns. People who genuinely need help ask for it directly. And partners who respect you don't orchestrate months-long deceptions to get you to make major life changes.